How's it going, Angie?
Very good. How are you?
Great and grateful. Can't complain. Not so
Good.
bad. Thank you
Good,
for
good.
coming. Appreciate you
No
taking the
worries.
time.
Thanks for having
Uh,
me.
yeah, I'm very excited. We've got 20 minutes to try to pick your brain. And
Yeah.
so, but before we get started, though, if you wouldn't mind, for all the people who haven't met you yet, do you mind introducing yourself? Tell us, why is it that you do what you do?
Of course. Yes. So I run agile sales and management. And the reason I do what I do is because I spent a long time building my own sales teams, nurturing, developing superstar salespeople, went through all the trials and tribulations of recruitment and managing up in big corporations and startups, and just saw so many examples of it done badly. And I was blessed to have a lot of examples of it done really well around me. And I just realized that sales is such a niche of an environment to be employed in, that it's a real honor to be the manager and the leader in those environments. And I'm just very passionate about making sure it's done well and much better than it's done now in a lot of
Awesome.
cases.
Love it. So, what are some of the biggest fails that you've seen in terms of the sales organization? They're coming to you and they think they're doing the right thing, but they just keep digging their grave. What's the common challenge or downfall that you see in the sales
Yeah,
organization?
there is a lot. I think a lot of it comes down to, three key areas, which is what we were chatting about the other day. But probably the most common mistake I see happen over and over again is that people get promoted. They're a great salesperson. They want to move up in their career. So the logical next step is to become the sales manager. Someone doesn't want to lose them, so they promote them, and they don't give them the training or the guidance around what it takes to be a good sales manager versus being a good salesperson. They're two very different skill sets. And when you have that happen in the effort to retain them, actually what you often do is really impact the quality of the rest of the sales team, because despite them wanting to do a good job, good salespeople often do too much talking and not enough listening, and that's a key skill that a sales manager needs to have. It's actually a key skill that salespeople should have, but unfortunately, people tend to forget it sometimes in management.
Too true. Too true. Okay, so I'm either newly appointed or I'm a new sales manager of the last couple of years, and I'm taking it on. My team seems to like me, but maybe I don't know what I don't know. So, what advice would you give to me that I could apply today to try to start getting value tomorrow?
Okay, that's a great question. I think for emerging leaders, it comes down to making sure that you learn and observe the skill set that you've got in your team. Don't assume that the way you did it is necessarily the way they need to do it, because everyone has different styles. And I often talk in sales teams about the magic that is a salesperson. It's not, you really need to capture the essence of each person, but give them the framework that they need to follow. So I think if you're a sales manager, it comes down to three things. How are you fostering accountability in your team so that everyone understands what's expected of them? Maybe what you did to be a good salesperson, only 50% of them are doing, seeing the right style. So the accountability is a very core part. The consistency is a key part as well. So you'll maybe, if you've got 4 or 5 salespeople, you'll have, 2 of you doing pretty well consistently, and then the others do well and then drop off, do well and then drop off. So fostering an environment where that is strategic. I refer to it as a spray and pray versus a strategic approach, which too many sales teams have a spray and pray. Unfortunately, it's just not effective. But the last one for me is the engagement that you have. So this is where the questioning comes in. If you understand what's important to the people in your team, where do they want to get better at, what do they want to be doing in 5 years, same as in sales, how we ask our clients that, needs to be the same approach, and making sure you're coaching them, not just trying to get them to do things for you.
Yeah, no, that's so true. But when I was doing enterprise sales, we would assign each of us a different kind of weapon. And so one of us was like the landmine. If a prospect comes close, it's like they just have all the knowledge in the world, and there's no way that deal's not happening. Someone else was the sniper, because they could go for the perfect decision maker and get that person. Other people with the machine gun and da da da. And as a salesperson going into a management role, understanding that psychology of the salesperson is not something that you're, innately brought into nor taught. So how can you, as a new sales manager, try to understand, there is a gap is in understanding who my team is and what is their essence, all of that, but start taking the steps to learn, right, outside of the team, and also taking the right steps or asking the right questions.
Yeah, so I think it comes down to a few. If there is the opportunity, you should be in market or customer facing with your sales team, so you can observe what they do, do a joint call. It's very hard for a lot of leaders, especially more senior ones, to be in front of a client and not take the lead. I work with a lot of my business owners just around that in itself. You kind of dominate the space sometimes instead of sitting back, observing that salesperson and then debriefing with them after really effectively to say, how do you think it went? These are the things that you probably need to focus on. So we don't want one person, Isaac, to have one skill and that be the only sniper, right? I want to cross-pollinate as many of those skills as possible, train from within, make sure that when you've got your sales team meeting, you're training each other. I had an amazing leader once that said to me, and it's not just, it's a famous saying, but you should be the dumbest person in the room when you're the manager. Your job is to hire people that are better than you and just share that skill set. So I think that's what I would suggest is, especially if you get promoted, you inherit a team. I remember in my very early days of management, I inherited what was the golden team. They were all much older than me. They were, I refer to them as the gorillas. Have you ever heard that term, gorillas in a sales team?
I don't know if I have, no.
Okay, so the gorillas are that kind of key person dependency that a business can have sometimes, where you're scared to lose that person because they're so great at making sales, but they've got a bit of an attitude. They're very hard to get to adopt things or change. They tend to just stick with how they like to do it. So I like to call them the gorillas. They're the hardest for us to manage. And when I inherited this team, I had like four gorillas in the team, which is why they'd been there for so long. And I think getting clear on what I was expecting of them and why it was going to be helpful for them was a key part of them either staying on the journey with me or deciding to move on, which some of them stayed, some of them changed and got great outcomes. But it's important to identify what personality types that you have in your own team and work out how to get the best out of them.
Yeah. No, for sure. Bottom right quadrant for another methodology we use. But yeah, that's most sales organizations will have at least one of those. So if we were to flip it, right, on the sales exec side, what can a salesperson do or ask their sales manager so that perhaps they can have a better relationship, initiate those conversations? Maybe they want a better sales manager. They're not going to learn and take the initiative. So how can the salesperson start that dialogue?
Yeah, I love that approach. And I think everyone, succession planning is such a thing that I'm passionate about. I've loved over my career that I've identified those people and they've been those people that take initiative and take control of their own career. I would suggest, I refer to it as managing up, managing sideways, managing down. So in any role, we've kind of got a special management. You've got those three angles. So in a sales executive, you have to manage up very well. And you also need to manage sideways because there's probably other stakeholders or other managers if you're in a larger business that you could learn from. And I would probably say be very deliberate in what you want to learn, where you want to get better. And, quite often you walk into your mid-year review, you've had to collate something and it's almost like like a report card. I think the sales executives that stand out and have an amazing career are the ones that take it as an opportunity to take that feedback in and can give it as well. So in our work, we talk about a feedback loop, right? As a manager, you should be inviting feedback, and as a sales executive should be as well, because the coachability piece is a huge part about whether someone can transform from a salesperson to a sales leader, which is a great career progression.
Yeah, no, it's when you can find those golden nuggets of salespeople, you got to really fight to keep them engaged and keep them motivated. Understanding those courses. I see we have a question. Dario Costa asked, Angie Dunn, how do you deal with a team who have very different styles when it comes to sales? I have a hard time helping them when I can't relate to their style.
Yes. Yeah. I think the core part that it takes away from all our styles is bringing the client to the center of that, right? So if we look at it from a truly client-centric point of view, what does the client need to hear from us, and what do we need to hear from the client? Then it doesn't really matter how we approach it. You know, one person might have I remember very early in my sales career, we were selling hotel memberships, you know, in a felt like a sweatshop. But myself and another guy were the top salespeople, and he was a Indian man that talked really quietly and was really, really direct. And I was very conversational and chatty, but our numbers always we had that competition. So I think as the leader of that team, not trying to teach the other people to follow the other people, but to create that trusting environment where you can listen to each other and learn from each other around what the client outcome needs to be. That's where you want to try and find those the nuggets that end up moving the dial.
So trying to create those atmospheres with the client so that you can A, observe, and B, work on a common goal. Right?
Yeah, so that's right. So I would suggest to the person that asked the question that in your structure with your team, you want to make sure that you have dedicated training plan that you're going to do. And as part of those training plans, perhaps share the load around like a round robin of everyone's got a different style. Let's do maybe a hot seat scenario where, rep A, rep B, rep C is going to have 20 minutes to talk through what their approach is. I guess take the onus off yourself as the sales manager and give them the opportunity to teach each other. And you'll find very easily the areas that you can guide. I think quite often you feel like you've got to be the person driving the agenda. Actually, you've just got to create the moments where they can learn from each other, because you want to inspire them to be the best, not teach them necessarily how to be the best.
Super helpful.
The other thing I wanted to touch on, Isaac, was dashboards, because I think I can't tell you how many sales managers I say, okay, so show me what it is that you look at with your team or individually or just, one-on-one. And it's so often it's like a death by data. There's all these reports and all these different things. We need to simplify that for sales people. I don't think you should have any more than 6 core KPIs. A good portion of them should be activity metrics, because quite often we make it too complicated and we take the eye off what really matters, which is truly dollar productive activity. So I would suggest if you've got a team with lots of different styles of people, instead of working out how they're doing it, unless there's an issue with the conversion somewhere, then just focus on how much of it they're doing, or, in what frequency, because that'll move the dial on the numbers.
KPI overload. Every salesperson's dream.
Yeah.
All right. Look, I want to keep. I've got about 15 other questions I wanted to ask. There's no way I'm going to get through them. So maybe if we could do a few key examples or like specific questions that you could ask as a sales manager and also as a sales executive. Like, what's an actual question that would be good to open up a dialogue and start building trust amongst the sales manager and salesperson?
Yeah, I'll take it from the sales manager's perspective. The questions that I would be asking in one-on-ones are, are there any barriers in your way right now that are preventing you to get to your outcomes? Are you clear on what you need to be doing in your week that moves the dial? So quite often we look at schedule management. So, if you looked at let's say you're my salesperson, Isaac, if you looked at all the tasks that you've got this week, how many of them are dollar productive? How many of them actually, that's one. Another one could be, out of all the things that you've got on your plate right now, what could you pass? What could you pause? And what do you need to keep playing? So, because you always hear salespeople saying, I'm just too busy. I didn't populate my CRM today or this week or this month because I just had too many things going on. So asking them those questions to try and teach them how to manage their time more effectively. And if you've got a team that aren't asking enough questions in market, I think asking them, what did the client tell you that made you think that? Because quite often salespeople make assumptions about what the clients need or want. They're very focused around pushing a product. And what we need to do is make sure that we're listening to what the clients are saying. So what did they say? Or what did you ask them that made you feel like that? Because then all of a sudden we're taking them into, did I ask enough questions in that meeting?
I like it. I like it. I see someone's added in a question here about do you observe and let them fail or intervene and make things right?
Yeah, it's such a hard one.
Question shadowing as a manager. How do you tackle that one?
Oh, it's a very, I've never forgotten when I was first learning how to do that. It was one of the most uncomfortable things, especially if you're a natural salesperson yourself. It's very hard to sit and watch it. I would say you do have to let them fail, and then you take the opportunity to reflect on it with them after. So make sure that you pick which ones you go and do a joint call with. You don't go into your top client and then sit back and let them burn it. You ask them to pick ones where it's going to be a repeatable scenario, but with a lower value. Also, don't underestimate the opportunity of role playing. I know everyone hates it. I spend a big portion of my week doing that with people, with salespeople and sales managers. But doing a role play allows them in a safe environment to crash and burn, and then you give them that feedback. So I think that's a good one if you don't have the joy of lower value clients that you can burn in front of.
Yeah, find the low risk opportunities. It is a common thing, especially in sales. People often need to fall to us for a hand, right? And so trying to find those low risk scenarios or create one, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Advice, right?
Create one. That's right. The other thing I would say, Isaac, just in that scenario is you could always set the scenario, the tone with the client to say, with your salesperson to say, when we start, I'm going to let you take the lead and cover it from end to end. And once you've completely finished that, then you throw to me and say, Angie, do you have anything else to add? And then I'll add if we need to, because then you'll get the scenario of what they were planning to cover that you can then debrief with, and you can sit quietly and take notes. And then you can jump in at the end and save the day if it needs to be. The only problem with that approach is sometimes they won't see what they need to see because you saved it, and they won't necessarily accept that wasn't because the outcome wasn't because you saved it, but the outcome was, in their mind, sometimes it was never a problem. So sometimes they have to feel the pain to see the issue. Yeah.
No, really good advice. I love it. Fantastic. All right.
Awesome.
Well, look, is there any other snippets of wisdom that you'd like to leave with anyone? Anything that people could apply right now to try and get value by tomorrow?
Yes, I would really encourage everyone to think about these three core areas of accountability, consistency across your team, and engagement. So engagement levers everything, right? If you've got a disengaged sales team, the numbers will never be as good. They will be a norming team, but not a performing team in that, that map that we see of high performance. So if there are areas in any of those three that they need help, message me, because I've got a few very easy fixes that you could look at to make a big change in those areas. But consistency, engagement, and accountability are your three best friends when it comes to managing a sales team.
Very helpful. Amazing. Thank you so much, Angie. We appreciate you. Thank you for your time.